Welcome to the second in a series of webinars focusing on farm labor. I'm Ty Higgins with Ohio Farm Bureau. Finding and retaining farm employees remain one of farmers' greatest challenges as the need for skilled farm labor grows, while the competition for available farm workers intensifies and wages spiral upward. That's why Ohio Farm Bureau and Nationwide have created a new collection of labor resources to help farmers understand the long-term implications of the labor shortage and provide solutions that will help position your farm business to better attract, hire, and retain farm employees. Included in those resources for everyone online at ohiofarmbureau.org, a labor intelligence report titled Farm Employees. Where are they? Strategies and solutions for your farm. And exclusively for Ohio Farm Bureau members on our website, a guide to finding, hiring, and retaining farm employees. Well, we got some special guests joining us here for webinar number 2. We'll get to that conversation here in a bit. But as we talk about this very important topic, if you have questions throughout the next half hour, make sure and drop them in the chat. We'll get to those a little bit later on here towards the end of the webinar. And of course, take those questions about creating ways to retain farm employees as we chat about this very important topic with Robin Davis, Vice President of Team Member Services with Horde Family Farm in Bucyrus, Ohio, and Bonnie Johnson. She's Marketing and Communications Manager with agcareers.com. Ladies, great to have you here. Thank you for taking time to talk about this very important topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, I want to start with you. Tell us about yourself and your role there with Horde Family Farm.
Sure. As you mentioned, we're a fifth generation farm with pigs, cattle, and crops in Bucyrus, Ohio. And I've worked with the Horde family for 22 years, and I head up our human resources department.
Bonnie,
tell us about agcareers.com and your role there.
Yes, so I'm Bonnie Johnson, Marketing and Communications Manager with agcareers.com. We are an online job board for the agricultural industry. And we also offer HR services and research and data for the industry as well.
In our first webinar, we talked about finding that farm labor, but now we have them on the payroll. They're coming in, doing a great job for us. We want to retain those farm employees. But that brings up the question why we're having this conversation. What are the common reasons that farm employees leave their jobs? And Bonnie, I'll kick that one to you to start.
Yeah, so actually, that's an interesting question because we actually asked almost the exact same thing to our we had nearly 2,000 agricultural workers and employees take our survey. We asked them, what is going to make you leave your current job for another one? I'm not sure if people are going to like to hear this or not, but the number one factor that was enticing them to move and leave their job was pay. It was money, so compensation. We asked them to rank several different things. Higher compensation was the top motivator overall. Pay matters now. Salary also we could tell was particularly important to part-time workers, to seasonal staff, and to hourly workers. We also asked a variety of different questions, and all of it kind of came back to salary and pay. We asked them, what's the most influential decision making factor in you deciding what employer you want to work for? Pay was top. Salary compensation package was the top motivator. On the flip side, we also talk to employers and have data from our employers, and we know that employers are recognizing the weight that compensation plays on retention. Regular pay increases is their top talent retention strategy they're using. Bonuses were one of the main ways they keep employees motivated and challenged. And then again, we asked them about their top way to attract new talent, and that higher starting salary was their top way they do that as well.
Robin, you finding that very same trend there at Horde Family Farm?
I'm sorry, I think I lost you there for a second.
That's all right. Are you
Okay.
finding that very same trend as far as I guess the bottom line being about the bottom line and making sure that employees get paid.
With inflation and different things, economic factors, that definitely has been a high level item. I would say one other thing over the years that we've seen is just the physicality of the farm job and the hours hasn't always matched. So that would be a second one. And then also like a third one would connect to their work. Didn't really have the passion needed to continue with the job. Pay and benefits are definitely a high one.
So, Robin, how do you keep track of what a fair rate is? I mean, the margins in agriculture really don't change a whole lot,
Right.
as you know, especially in the industry that you're in. So, how do you know what a competitive wage would be?
Yeah, great question. We look at this several times a year. We're looking at our local competition, which may not necessarily be another farm. We're looking at other farms and just assessing where does that need to be and making sure we're changing with the times, which, as you all know, has been a lot over the last few years compared.
Going back to you, Bonnie, as we talk about that pay, we haven't really put numbers to it yet. Is there any data out there that tells us what a fair wage would be? I know it depends on the job, but is there a range we should be looking at as employers?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, today's workforce really expects transparency with a lot of things, but pay is one thing that's also important. We've seen several states passing laws and regulations where they require you to put a pay range or a salary on the job posting. And the younger generations are really talking more about salary and how much they make more. So I guess when sometimes it can be a little scary to talk about being fully transparent in your pay. I guess one thing I would recommend to people, if you're an employer and you're nervous about your pay, maybe that's because you're not paying a high enough wage, or it's because you don't know if you're paying a high enough wage. There's a lot of online sources you can use to look at pay rates for different levels of experience, different locations. Agcareers.com, we also have a compensation benchmark review, which is a salary survey. And it's specific for agriculture and food. So you can go in and look specifically at, I have a farm labor in this zip code in Ohio. This is what my competitors are paying them. This is the range I need to be in to be competitive, or if you want to step it up a little bit. So that's a specific way, a very specific channel that you can use to find that sweet spot in salary.
As important as pay is in this conversation, I think there's a lot of added value in the work environment as well. Robin, there at Horde in Bucyrus, how do you create a work environment that employees want to stay in and be a part of?
Sure. Yeah. We hear an awful lot about retaining and engaging, which are highly, highly important. But I would add one more in there, and that's energize. One that we don't hear as much is really energize your employee base. And if you energize them around their work and your farm, you really increase the chances of them staying, which is what we've worked hard at in trying to make that happen. And that all starts with culture and really being intentional about developing and maintaining your culture, your own personality, which is unique to you, just like having a brand. And that, so that people know who you are and why and how you make your decisions, and your whole team understands that. Not only your whole team, the community, it kind of works both ways. And then if you can follow that personality, that culture from the time they're hired all the way through, until retirement, that really, really helps. And again, everyone's on the same page and they feel a part of something bigger. And that feeling part of something bigger equals the passion that you're looking for as far as people coming to work day in and day out.
I think we all realize, really, if we get an attaboy or a pat on the back, how far that goes in making us feel good about what we do and how we are a part of that big wheel that we're a cog in. Can you give us an example? You mentioned energize. Can you tell us maybe one example of how you do that at Horde to keep those employees engaged?
Sure, sure. And exactly what you talked about, the boots on the ground, the attaboy. We do have a formal culture program where we have our values. And then if someone sees an employee living out a value, they can nominate them for a badge, and that equates money and then recognition in our newsletter. So that helps keep our culture out there, but also is rewarding people for living that culture. So the normal things, but then that's just one little extra thing that we try to do.
It reminds me when my very first job was at Kroger, and they gave away little roses for your name
Yeah.
badge back then, right? And that was
Yeah.
the pat on the back. And by the end of my tenure there, you couldn't even see my name for all the roses because I was so energized and motivated to be a better employee and to help Kroger as a company, but also help out those customers
Yeah.
on a one-to-one basis. So it does go a really, really long way. Bonnie, what have you heard? What have you seen as far as strategies? And what do you recommend as creating that work environment that employees want to be a part of for the long term?
Yeah, I think related to what Robin was saying and you with the energizing part of it, one thing that comes up a lot in our research and based on what we hear from agriculture workers is they really want to be challenged in the workplace and they want to do meaningful work. So making sure you're providing an opportunity for them to do valuable, meaningful work, and then opportunities to grow and learn. So professional development opportunities. And I think tying into that, a lot of it goes down to communication as well. So communicating to your employees why what they're doing is so valuable, how it contributes to your overall farm or your organization, why it is important. So being communicative about that. They also, like I said, with pay, workers also value transparency in an organization. Now, we know as leaders or business owners, you can't divulge everything, but really employees want to know about the company's stability, about the industry's overall stability. If you have social responsibility initiatives, kind of being and open with your employees about that. And then in turn, if there is a downturn in the economy, a downturn in your business, also being forthcoming with that as much as you can. If employees are seeing layoffs or they're seeing people being walked out the door without explanation, kind of that fear sets in, and that's the opposite of what you want to do to retain employees. If you've already kept those key employees, if they start, some of that fear starts setting in, that can feed on that and they'll start looking elsewhere. So really being communicative and transparent with your employees, I think is key. And then developing those opportunities for professional development and meaningful, challenging work.
Really building these layers. And I appreciate this conversation very much. And the conversation continues with you. If you're watching this as an attendee, a Q&A is going to be happening here in about 5 minutes. So get those questions in. These really are 30,000 foot views that we're getting from our experts, but your questions are going to help get us to the farm level and answer those specific questions that you might be having as far as creating ways to retain farm labor there for your particular situation. So get those questions in the chat box. We'll get to those here in just a bit. So we mentioned the pay, mentioned that culture. Now let's talk about, I guess the elephant in the room, because a lot of us do our work for the benefits, right? What are, Bonnie, some of the benefits we can provide to farm employees to keep them a part of our company and of our team?
Well, I think there's some very basics that are expected. Obviously, insurance, paid time off of some sort, and retirement savings or retirement 401k plan have become somewhat expected from a lot of employees. We ask agriculture workers beyond those three things, what's most important to you? And overall, this is just data from 2022. Overall, they said flexibility was a top preferred benefit for them. And when we say flexibility, I think that can be a little unnerving for agricultural production operations, because you can't work remotely in a lot of instances. You can't work from home. But I think it provides an opportunity for those type of operations to look at other ways to bring in flexibility. So maybe it's job sharing, maybe it's a compressed work week, or flexible working hours, some variety of things that you can do. And then I think also beyond that flexibility, it's important to ask employees what they need and what they want. So just because you ask doesn't mean you have to. If they say, I want every Thursday and Friday off, obviously you can't probably do that. But asking is the first step. There may be some very simple things that employee benefits that they're looking for that could be very low cost or no cost that you could provide to them. So asking, and then again, communicating with them about what you can and cannot do. If you aren't asking, we know employers are asking. I think from our data, it looked like 80% of employers are asking their employees what they want in terms of benefits. So if you're not asking, you're falling behind. So I encourage you to ask those questions. Doesn't mean that you can meet all those things, and feel free to be upfront with your employees about that, but it shows them you're listening and trying to understand and doing what you can to match their needs.
Robin, it seems like a paradigm shift, right? It used to be the employee asked, what can you do for me if I take this job? But now the employer is kind of being the lead negotiator here in saying what they can give them that nobody else can.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And Bonnie had many good points there. And flexibility, we've definitely looked at things differently with schedules, and it ties into also the work-life balance, which is so important too, that flex. So we have many that have children, and we don't want them to miss their activities or their doctor's appointments or things like that. So we have a lot of flex there. We've shifted start times for getting kids on the bus. We have more part-time. So we really are. I mean, that if I flash back just even 5 years ago, it was not the same way. So it really, through COVID and after, we've really seen a change in the trends.
And Robin, I got an inside track. I got a chance to talk with your boss, Pat Horde, a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me the insight that you have people leaving the company for retirement.
Yes.
That's a different situation altogether in two ways. One, if they announce their retirement, sometimes they give you months, if not maybe a year, to plan accordingly to fill that role. But also maybe an opportunity to try to retain retiring employees. Can you kind of hit on that a little bit, and maybe some strategies to keep them on board for just a little bit longer as we see this labor shortage in this industry?
Absolutely. I mean, their knowledge is so valuable. You think of the years of experience and then just walking out the door, for retirement, which is a great thing. But we've had several that we've worked with part-time schedules or paring down their job, and that was fine for them. They wanted to stay on and wanted to still make a difference, just not all the hours, every day. So I'd really encourage that keeps you with that knowledge and the comfort of having someone there, and then they can also train someone else in that, additional time. So yes, I would highly recommend that. And we're going to start communicating with people more ahead, so we get more of a notice. Not that we're targeting a certain age, but we will be talking to, I can say it, anybody my age or up, we can talk to and just get what their plan looks like, so that we can work with them to help them decide on what that looks like.
Bonnie, we constantly talk about the average age of the farmer. In Ohio, it's 57 and a half right now. And I have to imagine that farm employees also skew a little bit to the more, I'll call them seasoned side of things. What do you know about retirement and some of the things that are happening on that front as far as what agcareers.com knows?
Yeah, so we employers are definitely feeling that pinch in terms of when we look at what they say is impacting them most in terms of recruiting difficulties and the workforce planning needs. Retirement is one of the top 3 factors. Voluntary turnover is another one, the changing job market, but retirement is definitely one of them. I think that's with farm and family farms, we often talk about succession planning. And I think with succession planning is important for all sizes of businesses. And obviously you have to start it pretty early. and have some idea on how that can play out. I also think what Robin mentioned is fabulous to invite retirees to stay on maybe in a part-time role. And that might be very welcome on their perspective as well. Sometimes I think it's hard when you've been involved in working full-time for so many years to just completely step away. So it might be a good way to ease out, and a fabulous way for employers to kind of keep that knowledge in the building too, or on the farm.
Got a question coming in I want to pose to both of you, and we've talked about the compensation part and the keeping them engaged and energized, but how about as far as providing growth opportunities? You hire someone, they're there for maybe a year or two, and they think maybe they not just more of a pay raise, but more responsibility, more skin in the game there on the farm. Robin, I'll start with you. What does that look like at Horde Family Farm as far as getting someone engaged and giving them goals for years and years to come?
Sure. Yeah, it's so important, and definitely helps keep the employees there. What we do is we look at things quarterly so that we're talking with our team and seeing where they are, and helping them work towards that next step so they can see what does it take for me to get to that next level. And that next level could be a promotion, or it could just be I'd like a project. So we look at that, or it could be they want some type of personal growth. So we try to specialize it as much as we can, and then help determine to help keep their interest level going. But we found that before, if we didn't sit down and be intentional about talking about it and documented it, it was very easy to not happen. And then we'd have people leaving for a promotion somewhere else, right? And you don't really want that. You want them staying there. So we've tried to use that method.
Robin, is that something that's talked about? I know we talked about finding those employees, but those growth opportunities, is that something that's more talked about now in that introductory phase than it is in maybe the early stages or middle part of the career?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only do we want them to know that they have a future and what that looks like, we want to help assess where they are too, because of building our bench and the succession that, you guys mentioned. It's so important to be on the same page, and things can change, but at least we have a working, document that we're looking at, and can ebb and flow with how things change and whether we grow or whether they decide they want to go somewhere else in the company. We've had that before too, switching departments. So whatever we can do to keep that employee engaged, energized, as we talked about before, is how we look at those discussions.
Bonnie, what are you seeing on that front? Are these more of the items that are on the job posting as they have these upfront conversations?
Definitely. And I think you'll see a lot of people when they're interviewing for jobs, a lot of job seekers will ask about professional growth, development opportunities, and the path, the industry at an organization, or the path for growth. That's a very common question to come right from the candidate. And I think that overall, professional development opportunities, it's not only up to the employer to discover professional development opportunities. I encourage employers to ask their employees what do they want to learn, what do they want to take part in this year. It's part of our planning. It can be an annual review, or it can be in a 6-month checkup, asking employers, what are 3 key things you want to learn this year or grow and develop? And what are some professional development opportunities that you'd like to take advantage of? So there's definitely some of that can be put, I don't want to say back on the employee, but can kind of work with the employer to help determine what they both need. Definitely some things will come from the employer as well. There might be some training, some free webinars. We know that I think it's 45% of farm laborers in the U.S. Do not have a high school diploma. So encouraging that attainment of a GED and high school or a high school diploma, and ways that you can develop that into their professional development can also be helpful too.
That kind of answers the next question here in the chat. What are unique ideas to competitive compensation and benefits to farm employees? And Bonnie, you really hit on that. Helping with furthering their education. What other strategies or ideas are you seeing out in the workforce as far as those unique ideas for competitive compensation and benefits go?
Bonnie, did you have, go ahead.
No, I would say the main thing that we see as a competitor to benefits is if maybe it's saying we can't offer you the highest salary, but we can offer this in terms of flexibility. I think that's what we see a lot of emphasis on right now, and that's what people are asking for. So being able to communicate with a potential new hire or someone who's on your staff, this is what we offer you in terms of, like Robin said, if you need to leave for get your children on the bus in the morning, if you need to leave for their activities, that has become so important to people in that work-life balance versus integration aspect. So I think, you mentioned work-life balance before, and there's some very distinct things with some people like work-life integration. So understanding that we're giving you some of this flexibility to kind of integrate your work life and your home life, so you can attend kids' activities, so you can go to those doctor's appointments. That goes a long way in competing with if you can't meet that salary that's needed.
Robin, what are some of the ways that you might utilize that may be unique to Horde until people watch this webinar and steal it? But what are some of the things that you might do to be competitive?
Yeah, and honestly, it does go off away from the compensation, because we do what we believe is fair and, do our checks. But away from that, it really is support at thinking about the employee, the whole employee, their personal life and their professional life. So we kind of split things. So for an example, on the personal side, is we do sponsor Financial Peace once a year for our employees. It's Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. People have really enjoyed that, learned a lot. So support in the areas that sometimes cause stress for the employee, through home and through work. And that goes along with different training. We do personal training and professional training. So really, I call it support. What do they need? Back to Bonnie, what you said, what do they need to help them? And what can we do as a company to offer that? So Financial Peace is one that comes to mind.
These are conversations and ideas that 4 or 5 years ago probably wouldn't have made sense, but our world has changed. The way we communicate with employees and the way we retain employees has certainly changed as well, which makes this conversation even more important for farm families and farm companies and businesses all across the state. Robin Davis, Vice President of Team Member Services with Horde Family Farms in Bucyrus, Ohio, and Bonnie Johnson, Marketing Communications Manager with agcareers.com. Two fantastic experts on this topic. And ladies, I really appreciate you taking time to share that expertise with us today on the webinar.
Thank you. Appreciate having us.
This is just one aspect of the many resources Ohio Farm Bureau is giving to our members and anyone in Ohio that wants to focus on farm labor. Of course, I mentioned earlier the Labor Intelligence Report online at ohiofarmbureau.org that is open to everybody. It's titled Farm Employees, Where Are They? Strategies and Solutions for Your Farm. And then exclusively for Ohio Farm Bureau members, a guide to finding, hiring, and retaining farm employees. That'll wrap up webinar number 2, but coming up next month in another 30-minute webinar, Ohio farmers Cameron and Mandy Way will share how they're using the H-2A program to fill seasonal farm labor needs, and Sarah Black with the Great Lakes Ag Labor Services will help you understand the benefits and the ins and outs of the H-2A program. A great opportunity to learn more about the H-2A program and if it's the right option for your farm. Again, all these resources and more online at ohiofarmbureau.org. Thank you for watching. I'm Ty Higgins. We'll see you down the road.